Alright guys, let us wrap up here with Unit 10 Reconstruction. It's your final one. You should have a completely filled out grid after we finish this short video. So, after Lincoln's assassination, Andrew Johnson becomes the president. He was Lincoln's vice president, so the line of succession goes, if the president dies, the vice president becomes the president. And he's tasked with putting America back together, which we call Reconstruction. So what's happened is the United States, the southern states that rebelled, are broken down into 5 military districts, okay? And they're run by a Union military officer instead of like a state governor. So, you know, it's they don't have equal rights like the northern states do, and they don't get any kind of representation like that. It's literally a military jurisdiction. But some of the things that do come out of this Reconstruction era are 3 new amendments to the Constitution. The 13th, which abolishes slavery, gets rid of slavery for good. Done. Slavery is now illegal in the United States. The 14th Amendment, which gives everybody that's born in the U.S. citizenship rights. So as long as you're born on American soil, you are a U.S. citizen, and that includes former slaves. The 15th Amendment gives every male the right to vote. Women, it's still going to be quite a few years before women get the right to vote, but all men, once they reach voting age, can vote in public elections. So out of this time, we get people that were called carpetbaggers, and they came down from the north to make profits off of the South, the South was hurting really bad during this time. So President Johnson is actually impeached because he opposes radical Reconstruction, which is basically northern politicians, radical Republicans who want to punish the South severely for their part in the war. And Johnson doesn't agree with that because Lincoln didn't agree with it. Lincoln wanted to bring everybody back together and just continue on, and just everybody moves past it, and we get on with our lives. But the radical Republicans in Congress said nope, and they got their way. And because they have a majority in Congress, they can bring up formal charges. They bring up charges against Andrew Johnson. They impeach him. He's out of office. And he is replaced by Ulysses S. Grant, who was the Civil War hero commander, and his entire presidency is marred by controversy and crazy things that happened during the Reconstruction era. And actually, when Grant leaves office is when the Reconstruction era begins, and that is the end of this course. But let's talk about some things that happen. So we have the Freedmen's Bureau that happens, and the Freedmen's Bureau is a government group that is set up to help newly freed slaves integrate themselves into society by helping them find jobs, trades, homes, things like that. We get the first African-American politician to be elected to the Senate, and his name is Hiram Rhodes Revels. He's very important in American history. But in the South, we also have these things like black codes and Jim Crow laws that stick around for a long time. It's really the black codes. So yes, African Americans were given the right to vote, but in the South they said, hey, if you can't read, you can't vote. Or they would give them literacy tests or certain tests that they say, hey, you have to take this test before you can vote. And so the freed slave, he's a citizen, but he can't read, so he can't do the test. So they say, well, you can't vote. And it was just these double standards that were happening at the time. This is also when we see the Ku Klux Klan, the KKK, rise to prominence in the South. And what they did was they threatened not only the newly freed African American population, but they also threatened people, anybody who was helping or who was supportive of the newly freed slaves, and who were trying to help them out. Even politicians, they would threaten politicians. They would murder people for trying to help freed slaves. It's worth noting that some injustices were served on the Native American population at this time also. A lot of them had been moved into what was called Indian Territory, which becomes Oklahoma, and they were really persecuted, and with laws passed by Congress, some of their tribal lands were actually broken up and sold to white people. just kind of like that. And so here we have a U.S. Army soldier living with, I believe these are Cherokee. And then we have the 1776 election, or excuse me, 1876 election, where Rutherford B. Hayes makes a deal to end Reconstruction as long as he becomes the president. And that's what ends our class. And that's the end of this until you get to 11th grade, where you will review everything that we just did and then continue on until modern day.